Dadnarok presents the Loki after show. Whoops. That was a different dimension. Chris and Sean. This is Sean.
This is Chris.
We are back to discuss episode 5 of Loki. Here we are, the penultimate episode. Only one episode left. I guess, well, who are we? Let me just get into it. Usually I ask you, like, what you think of this episode? And you're like, well, before we begin, let's do who we are. We're Dadnarok. We're Chris and Sean. We do an audio podcast that comes out kind of weekly, on every podcasting platform, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. And then we do this after show, of course. We are 5 episodes out of 6 into this bad boy. We've done them for the other Marvel shows like WandaVision and Falcon Winter Soldier. And we've done them for the Mandalorian series as well. Coming up next, our next after show will be Ted Lasso. We'll be breaking free of the Disney Plus chains and strapping on the Apple Plus.
Strapping on the Apple Plus. That is a visual that nobody needed, isn't it?
Anyway, we're covering Ted Lasso later this month. But yeah, we're not there yet. We're at Loki, episode 5. What'd you think?
Dude, I mean, okay, so episode 1 and 2, I was high. I came out the gate and I shocked you. So this has been my favorite Disney Plus show to date. I mean, that even included, Mandalorian.
Right.
And episode 3 hit, and it brought it way down. Yeah. Episode 4 hit, and I was pumped. I was enjoying it. I said last week I couldn't wait till this week because I wanted to see more. I enjoyed that episode so much. Dude, I did this episode. I mean, let's stay on the positive here. Alligator Loki was amazing.
We don't have to. We don't. So you liked Loki Gator?
Yeah, Loki Gator was great. I've seen comparisons to Baby Yoda for Loki. But dude, I don't know if it's. I'm not a fan of the actress that plays female Loki.
Okay,
I can't put my finger on exactly what it is when it comes to those two together, because the last episode that had just basically was focused on those two, I didn't think was any good either.
Right. Yeah. When they're just walking on that planet thing.
And we got a lot of that again. A lot of like no action, just kind of dialogue. Loki talking to other Lokis. We found out a lot about when they're pruned, what happens. They go to the void. So we know that they don't die type things.
Right. I thought that we were going to get more information about who is heading the TVA. We really got none of that because Sylvie, she questioned Renslayer was so cagey. You don't know if anything she was saying was true. Could have been all of it, could have been none of it.
Yeah.
The only thing that she did tell the truth about was how when you prune people, they're still alive. They're not dead. I mean, that was true enough. Sylvie believed that enough, at least, to prune herself and get her to where our Loki is.
That whole situation, I thought it wasn't earned at all. Why all of a sudden does Sylvie trust Renslayer's word? Like, even to the point where she would prune herself, she believed that was the case.
After Renslayer betrayed her by trying to delay her and talking about this vehicle that could go through the space-time continuum. And she bought it. Yeah, that whole series of events kind of felt, a little hollow.
Yeah, not earned. There was no build up to it. There was no explanation. Why would somebody trust somebody that's been hunting them and pulled them out of their childhood, their whole life? She's been hiding in all these Nexus events or these apocalypses. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, within one moment,
conversation.
She now trusts her enough to prune herself. Essentially, what she thought was death.
Yeah.
So essentially, she thought she could have been killing herself without having no knowledge of anything else.
Yeah, and while we're talking about Renslayer, I guess it's a little early, but it's good enough time. She was all over the place. Like I haven't liked her character pretty much throughout this whole thing because I don't know what her intentions are. I don't know at all. I don't know how she truly feels about Mobius. I don't know how she truly feels about the TVA. I don't know how she truly feels about the timekeepers, them being robots or
Mhm.
not robots, or who's behind it all, or if she is a variant, or if she is, how she feels about that, or if she's not a variant. Like, there's just, you don't know anything about her or her intentions or anything. And I was hoping you get some clarification with this episode, but you really don't. um after Sylvie kind of offs herself and disappears from the TVA there. um we have Renslayer heading to B-15's cell. B-15 was the only did they call them Minutemen? I don't know, they're little soldiers. The
Yeah,
timekeeper soldier
I
guys.
think they're called Minutemen, but yeah, they all have their own like designation. Like we knew C-20 was the one that was enchanted by Sylvie at the very beginning,
Right, and
and now like
B-15 was the one who had the great scene outside of the Roxxon market with Sylvie last episode in the rain.
Why am I locked in here?
You freed the variant. You were disloyal to the TVA.
Disloyal?
Did you think you'd escape punishment for that?
Disloyal to who? You were in the Timekeeper's chambers. They weren't real.
And why do you think that changes anything?
That changes everything.
Yeah, so it's like, it's just more of the same, where it's like more stuff that's not answered. Like, why did she spare B-15? Why wasn't B-15 just pruned immediately? Like, we don't get an answer as to why she's sparing B-15. We also don't get any sort of clarification as to what her end game is. We see later Renslayer, like, once again asking Ms. Minutes to check on the files of the origins of the TVA, as though she doesn't know. Like, she wouldn't have done that already. Like, this whole thing with her is just, it's kind of plot wise, it feels a little kind of hard to believe and shaky in a lot of spots with this character in particular.
yeah, she was trying to buy time, looking for things, the spaceship that can go through this this portion. It was just a bunch of just like, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it did none of it felt right. Like I want to see where they go with B-15, because she's one of my favorite characters now of the show itself.
You're right.
I mean, there's obviously Loki, there's Morbius, and then I believe B-15. I think she's going to play a big part in the way that this series wraps up.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure where it's going to go or how it's going to wrap up, but I mean, we'll find out. I mean, there's just like, we didn't get nothing in this episode.
Basically, that's the answer that we got. Like, it's because plot contrivances. Like, why was B-15 spared and she's sitting in a cell? Well, because we need her to be there in the TVA for episode 6 when Mobius comes back, and those two can team up and, continue the plot.
Why wasn't she pruned? Why didn't they prune her?
Right. No good reason, just because we need her for, the finale.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, I mean, the only thing they gave us for why she wasn't pruned was, you were enchanted. You need to tell me about her. That doesn't fly.
Like,
I mean,
why at this point? Like, if she's gone, if Sylvie's gone, like, then why? It's just like all of this just, and I don't think they're not gonna wrap up. It's so weird because this thing was plot wise was like very tight, those first few episodes, because it had a lot of story to tell with the introduction and the world building. And now that the worlds that they built initially is kind of crashing down around us, as far as who and why and what's the real reason behind this whole thing, I feel like they're kind of losing the thread a little bit with a lot of these things, and
the wheels are falling off.
Yeah,
and, I mean, and they're falling off quickly too. It's like, I think this is quickly becoming the worst Disney Plus show that is now in line. Like, what's Marvel's Star Wars involved. And it hurts saying that, because I loved it. I still watch it each week, wanting to love what I'm watching.
Right.
And when you fall into that and you're just disappointed, that's when it's like, okay. I mean, and I still believe, I mean, I said it before, even a really bad Marvel show right now is still better than really anything else.
Yeah, Marvel's like pizza.
yeah. It's hard to screw up a pizza. It can be done, but it's hard to.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I kind of felt that throughout this episode. I thought there were times between the Lokis and our Loki meeting the other Lokis, and they were kind of fun, like the older Loki, classic Loki. I really liked his portrayal. He's gone. He was kind of a one and done in one episode. I guess all of them are kind of one and done.
Yeah.
And that was another thing. It was like I liked it, and there's kind of so much of a build up to it, and there was so much of a hook that the coda of the last episode, where pretty much we're not going to see any of them again. I don't think, like the Kid Loki and stuff. Like I think that's all done.
Yeah, I think that's all done behind us. I mean, what did you think of the idea of the void? Like they were sent to the void because we find out that it's impossible to kill all the matter when pruned.
It made sense to me. I think it's Marvel comic books kind of have these pockets of the universe where it's like that, where it's sort of outside space and time, where you can, you run into somebody from the future or the past and they're kind of stuck in this place. They can't get out. We've had like secret wars and stuff like fought in places in little pocket universes and stuff in the comics. So like it makes sense to me. Like I didn't think it was like, so far off the beaten path. And ever since the beginning, when they were deleting them, it just felt not strange, I guess, but strange in a way. It's like when you are dealing with like correcting timelines, you just never know because time is so malleable and stuff. You just never know when you might need that person. So completely delete something, it just seems off. Like you may need that thing later.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
So it's probably best to have a recycle bin where they just all go, as opposed to permanently deleting them off the hard drive.
That's funny. A recycle bin. I
Yeah.
didn't quite think of it like that. I mean, even in that void, you see, like it looked like to me, like the Golden Gate Bridge was there.
Right.
So I mean, there was a bunch of buildings and everything, and I don't know. I thought it was funny. Yeah,
Warner Butters thought this episode was awesome. And he's got
I'm
his
glad
little,
he enjoyed it.
Butters Thor icon there. I like it. Pretty
I'm
funny.
glad he enjoyed it, man. It's
Yeah, this is all subjective. I mean, this is just how Chris and I felt walking away from it. And we said earlier, like even a bad episode of a Disney Plus Marvel show is still pretty damn good. I mean, all the effects were there, the acting's there.
yeah.
I do enjoy, even though like the scenes between Sylvie and Loki, when they're just kind of, barely kind of touching next to each other, and
Just
will they,
sitting there.
won't they kind of romantically hook up and stare longingly at each other's eyes. Those kind of the scenes kind of been dragging for me a little bit, because it's like I see, like, okay, I get it. I see where you're going with that. You don't need to like keep beating the hammer of these two, or falling for each other. Like, okay, I get it.
Yeah. I understand.
show
Okay,
me
now
some
he's got a
plot.
blanket over both of them.
Right.
She has no family. He's learning that family is everything. Just the whole thing, being there for somebody. Yeah, I'm right there with
Especially
you.
when you leave these huge dangling plot threads that are still being left unanswered. I don't want to waste a whole bunch of time with Sylvie and Loki. Like, I get that character arc. Like, I understand it. I don't need to spend more time with it, because, spend more time with stuff like answering some of these questions. You only got, as I was watching this episode, I'm like, well, we got about half this we got like 10 minutes left of this episode and one episode left.
Unless they go this route, how he's lost his dad, his mom. He's basically turned his back on Thor.
Yeah.
I mean, what if they're setting this up for him to fall for her and caring for her, and then she then dies in the finale? So it's another loss, another tragedy for Loki. That's the only thing I can see them setting up.
Yeah.
And they're putting a lot of legwork into that. I think they should give us as fans and as viewers a little more credit than what they're giving us with this, with this being built up.
Yeah, I was thinking this throughout this entire series so far too, since Sylvie's been kind of introduced. I was like, I wonder if Tom Hiddleston wants to maybe bow out of the role, because he's been playing Loki for so long. Like, because actors just kind of get tired, they want to do other things.
Yeah.
I wonder if he bowed out and they just replaced Loki going forward with this Sylvie character, who's actually kind of takes the mantle of Loki. Like, I think they did enough. Sometimes they just do gender swaps and character swaps without a lot of like explanation. They just kind of do it.
Yeah.
But I feel like this series would be a proper introduction to the new character and kind of a passing the torch. And I think they could probably get away with it. And Sylvie would be interesting, an interesting Loki going forward. But then if, I think about it more, and I'm like, it's hard to say that also. Like, I see the other side of it, because Sylvie is such a different character than Loki. Like, Loki is the god of mischief, but there hasn't been a lot of mischief when it comes to Sylvie. Sylvie's just hell-bent on revenge.
Yeah,
And
she's straightforward in what she's looking to do.
Yeah, and she, from the get-go, clearly, even when she was a little girl, was just like more of a well-behaved, like good person, like a good being, and she seems to have good intentions. So she's not the Loki that we know and love, and I don't think she would be a good replacement for the Loki that we know.
I couldn't get on board with that. I mean, either we have Loki or we don't have Loki. That's kind of my thinking of it. I couldn't see her, taking over the mantle as Loki. Even she said herself, she doesn't go by Loki. I mean, that's why they call her Sylvie.
Yeah, she doesn't feel like Loki. If she felt more like the god of mischief, more like the devious way that Loki has felt, I could buy into it more. Not to say that they're even doing this, but I was just saying, like, it'd be an interesting way for them to go. But I don't know. This has been a kind of a showcase for Tom Hiddleston to do more with the character too. I know a lot of times they like to stretch their acting chops and not have to like be hooked into wires and have explosions and stuff going on. Like they like to have a little bit more meat on the bone. So he's had, good character interactions and scenes, talky scenes with this show. So maybe he'll stick around.
It works. I mean, he nails it. I mean, I like I said, there's something that's all for me when it comes to the actress that plays Sylvie. Now that just may be me, but it just, there's something between the two that it just seems odd.
But, and it also feels like destined to not work. So the more time you spend on it, getting them together, when in the back of your mind you're like, "There's no way this they live happily ever after" or something. Like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, kind of back to a little more of Renslayer. What did you think when she said the dogma says that the end of time is still being written? Like, we've been told to this point, time has been written from beginning to end. The timekeepers know all. Now that do we buy that explanation that everything is not written to the end of time?
Yeah, well, that's another thing. It's like I don't know what to believe. Any word that comes out of her mouth, I don't know what to believe, because we've never had a rock to hold on to as far as whether or not she's telling the truth. She's almost like a Loki in that way.
I mean, that was very true. Whoa, what if she was a variant of Loki?
She could be. Yeah, she could be a Loki. Who knows? That'd be a heck of a twist, wouldn't it?
That'd be a pretty funny twist, honestly.
Yeah, that actually looked pretty good. Considering I haven't believed the word she'd said since the beginning of the show. That's funny. But
that'd be why Mobius gets along with her so well.
Yeah, maybe. See, now that you mentioned that, it's all coming together. You heard it here on Dadnarok first. Next episode, we'll find out the Renslayer is actually a Loki variant.
Renslayer is a Loki variant. Oh, I like that. I'm gonna roll with that. Last time I threw something at the wall to see if it stuck, and it was right.
Right. Yeah, we'll find out. So Sylvie, she prunes herself. She ends up landing in this, negative zone. Oh, the void is what they called it. The void.
Yeah.
The void, the noid in the void.
You better not have late pizza.
She gets there. And Mobius pulls up in this pizza
car. Yeah, hence the pizza. I better not have late pizza
on the top of the spring, just bouncing.
You missed that one completely.
What did you say?
I said you better not have late pizza.
Oh my God, you did. You tossed that right to me, didn't you?
Yep, softball, and you missed it.
McDominoes, avoid the noid. Whatever.
Okay, we'll move on.
Yeah, Mobius is okay. We knew from the moment that we saw Loki wake up, we were like, oh, Mobius is probably fine. And he shows up again, and at the end of the episode, well, I guess we have that's your scene loading up, right? As far as him saying his goodbyes.
Looks like you got away in the end. I always do. What will you do at the TVA? Burn it to the ground. Thanks for the spark. Well, see you later, Loki.
Thank you, my friend.
I think
that was earned.
Yeah, I feel like that was earned.
Okay.
And the reason I feel like that was earned and the whole trusting between Sylvie and Renslayer was they've been building this from the beginning. The relationship between Mobius and Loki. From, when he first comes in to when they're on the desk and he's telling, Mobius that they're variants. And, when Morbius finds out. He finds out. I think Morbius actually respects Loki and likes Loki, so he really wants to believe him. So when the whole thing happened, I bought that.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, I believe Loki. I mean, or Mobius, I should say, when he says his intentions. That's the thing I couldn't do with Renslayer. I definitely do with Mobius. Yeah, and you're right. Throughout the series, they've had their talks. You know, they've had some real talk.
It's the heart of the series. Those two
Yeah.
are the real heart of this whole show.
My favorite scene so far has been those two opposite each other sitting at a table talking about like Loki's past and his intention. Like, you know what I mean? Like, who's the real Loki? Like, and when he told him, he was like, okay, let's say you rule everything. Then what? Like, you don't strike me to be the kind of guy that would be satisfied with that. You would just keep going. And Loki has to like think about that. Like, he knows Loki almost, better than Loki knows himself, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Loki. So Mobius says he's going to burn the TVA to the ground. What's he going to do next episode? How's he going to do that?
Honestly, I've got no idea. I mean, I think he's absolutely going to get back. He's in a free B-15, so it's going to be those two. And I think I don't know. I mean, they don't give us anything. I mean, and they don't even really give us anything to like throw theories on either. So they're going to come back. I think they're going to stop. What's her name? Renslayer. Thank you. And they're going to come together with. There's going to be some kind of coming, together with those two. But we may find out there's many other Morbius, variants that are working for her.
So Mobius is more of a pretty consistent character in the Marvel comic books. I think that episode 6, we will find out that there's, who this big baddie is, the one that actually formed the TVA. If it's Kang the Conqueror, like, people on the internet are saying, or somebody else, we'll find out about it. It could be Loki himself. Could be just a Loki that actually got all this power, because it's ultimate. We saw that in the first episode. Loki stares at this TVA creation and the fact that there were Infinity Stones in the drawer and they weren't even using them. He was like, so this is ultimate power. Maybe the person who created all this was a Loki that finally found ultimate power. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know that it's going to be Kang the Conqueror. It could very well, in a Loki show, it could very well be Loki as the bad guy.
Yeah. Or we can be dealing with the time tornadoes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole, storyline within itself within the comics. So, yeah. I mean, there's so many options that can go down. I don't know if I'd almost hate to see one big bad guy at the end of all this, because frankly, they haven't earned that either. Right. I just want to know who is running the TVA. Who are the timekeepers? That if they only gave me that at the end of next week, I'd be satisfied. I don't need to see some big new bad guy pop up without giving me any build-up. That's like giving us Thanos,
right?
In 2 movies, but nothing building up. So we've seen the build-up all the way to the point where we actually seen him in action.
Yeah. We saw the followers of Thanos. We saw him in after credit scenes. We saw his daughter Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy's movies. Like, he was like a dark cloud that was hovering over the MCU for the entire decade, pretty much. It was like, Thanos is coming.
Yeah, we can even relate this back to the Disney Plus shows. I mean, we had the Flag Smashers the whole way through when it came to Captain America and Winter Soldier. Yeah. Or if you go back to WandaVision, we had
it was Agatha all along.
Agatha, she was in every single episode, so right. it was giving us nuggets to figure out, what's going on. They were helping us along the way.
That's why it wouldn't surprise me in the least if they finally get to, because at the end of the episode, it's on our thumbnail. Sylvie and our Loki, they kind of conquer and enchant this, what's his name? Eliath. The big smoke monster. He reminded me of the smoke monster from Lost, which you hate.
I didn't like that either. The smoke monster, and I can enchant a smoke monster by touching the smoke. Right. I mean, and then when they enchanted him, all of a sudden he just poofed. Poof, be gone.
Well, it looks like he spread his butt cheeks open to open up a portal so they could walk through it to this castle in the sky.
Yeah, I mean, what are we in? Never-ending story now? I mean,
It just keeps going. It's like 6 layers deep here. It's like, okay, so we go up to the TVA, which is this like hard concept, and we go from the TVA to this void, which is another kind of weird concept, and from the void to this other place, so this other purple and green shadowy in space place that we don't know where or what it is. Yeah, it's just like, okay, like eventually gets, and this is kind of what I was fearful for in this show, is like so many tough concepts. Eventually it's going to kind of like, be too much for your average viewer to handle.
Well, I've had a few people like we know Janessa, my wife. She loved all the other Marvel, shows to this point. 2 episodes in, she couldn't do this one anymore. I talked to someone else at work. 2 episodes in, she was done.
Yeah.
And like another guy I was talking to that hasn't watched it yet, but I kind of gave him the concept behind it, and he's like, I'm not down for that. I mean, even the movies, I said, if they start pulling that in the movies, he's going to be out. It just gets too heady. There's like too much thinking that needs to go involved, be involved in it. And there's too much, there could be no consequences to anything that happens if there's multiple timelines and multiple versions of this character.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I was fearful of that, and that's kind of the direction they're heading. They could do a lot of work in this last episode to kind of cure a lot of these things, but that's a lot of work in one episode, man. I feel like Mobius may keep the TVA going in a different form. I think maybe he'll become the new leader of the TVA and still find a value of like trying to set things right. For instance, like when the Avengers have to like, do their time hopping kind of thing to save the day, like they did in, Endgame. I feel like an agency like the TVA would be needed for something like that. But basically, maybe they are the ones to help Steve Rogers put the stones back. We've yet to see, that story. Maybe they stepped in. I could see them exist. I think they need to exist in the Marvel. They've been introduced. They're kind of too cool of a concept to put back on the shelf now. So I think they'll continue in some form of fashion, only it'll be like the good version of the TVA ran by Mobius going forward. But beyond that, I don't know how the show's going to end. And I had ideas as far as the multiverse of madness and everything, but I don't know. I just don't feel like there's a ton of time left.
Well, there's also, I've been leaning into like the idea of like, this show was setting up so much more when it comes to the rest of, the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
And frankly, I'm not even convinced of that anymore.
I'm not either.
You can almost completely just not watch this one at all. And you can go into Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and Ant-Man and all them and be fine.
Yeah.
This was the first one I'm like, okay, I don't think it has any connection. Well, there'll be connections, obviously, but not the connections that I was thinking that there would be.
It's been kind of tough, honestly, because the Marvel movies were so good at like kind of sprinkling the future movies into the current movie that you're watching. You go to the theater, you see the end credit scene, and then you see some sort of reference to some other character of some other movie that's on the way, And 6 months from now, another Marvel movie is going to show up with that particular thing. Like when Mjolnir lands down in the desert and they see it at the end of Iron Man 2 or whatever, that kind of thing. And it was always cool. It was always like, oh yeah, like here we go. Like here's the next one. And they haven't like done
There was no after the post-credit scene in this one.
Yeah.
I searched and I was like, you serious? There was none? I mean, there was one last episode. Why are you not giving me one now?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, not only just the post-credit scenes, within the episodes, but just like the connectivity to the larger things down the line between the Eternals and, Ant-Man and the Quantumania and just the movies like the new Spider-Man. Like, we know that Wanda Maximoff is going to be with Doctor Strange in his movie. That's a given. And we saw her kind of doing her thing at the end of her show. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I couldn't really give you any kind of point or connection to what I know is coming in the future. Not really. And this show, I'm kind of fearful that it's like he is going to, Sylvie and Loki are going to run into some other Tom Hiddleston in this castle. And that's going to be it. And there's not going to really be a big connection to future events. That's what I'm fearful for. And I would prefer if this show that introduced such big concepts actually dovetailed into the bigger concepts that are on the way. But I don't know.
It has to. Like you already brought up WandaVision, where we've
Mhm.
seen the scrolls at the end.
Mhm.
So I mean, we know with WandaVision they did what they did with the movies.
They did pretty well, yeah.
There's pieces.
Right.
We like I said, we really didn't get a whole lot of that with Falcon Winter Soldier,
Yeah.
but we did get pieces that may be going forward. Like that may be connected in some way to Shang-Chi because you're
Right.
dealing with that city, and then you're dealing with Sharon, who runs. She's like the big crime boss within that city.
Right. That's fair. Yeah.
Mangapore, or something like that. Yeah,
Madripoor, yeah.
Madripoor. That may be the connective tissue there. They give
Could
them
be.
a little bit of credit.
Yeah.
This one here, there's no connective tissue that I can even pull from or make a hypothetical like, okay, 6 degrees of bacon type, connection to. It's just not there.
I don't know. I mean, we're not going to know for sure until we see, hopefully, a post-credits scene after the entirety of episode 6, which is just a week away. It's going to be the last episode of Loki. You and of course, we're going to, watch it and have an after show next Wednesday and talk about stuff and theorize on what's next coming down the line for Marvel. But yeah, final thoughts on this episode here.
Dude, it like I said, this episode here made it fully tumble to the bottom of the Marvel, Star Wars, Disney Plus shows. Yeah.
Wow, it was started at the top. Now we're here.
It started so high, and then it was above it. Then episode 3 hit, and then it dropped below Mandalorian,
Mm-hmm.
and then it dropped below WandaVision, and WandaVision and Mandalorian for me are like a close hand in hand. Like I enjoyed that so much.
Yeah,
but this one it tumbled, and it tumbled hard, and it's got to have a really big recovery for it to bounce back above Falcon Winter Soldier to be at the end of it.
For me, it's actually been diminishing returns since the get-go. I loved WandaVision. I enjoyed Falcon Winter Soldier, but ultimately it didn't hit me as hard as WandaVision did, thematically and character-wise. And then Loki has been somewhat fun most of the way so far, but really nothing that's leaving a lasting mark with me. So I don't know. That doesn't bode well for Hawkeye.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, the only thing I can think they can do with Hawkeye, and they're good at keeping quiet. If somehow, no, never mind, because it's gonna be it's probably gonna be post blip. So,
yeah, it would have to be.
Yeah, no.
Well, I did hear that they're gonna have maybe scenes or talk more about when he was Ronin during the.
Because if they do the Ronin and they bring Black Widow into that part of the mix, because she's the one that went and pulled him out of that Ronin persona and back into Hawkeye.
Right.
So if somehow they can mix, if for instance, there is an after credit scene that I've heard in Black Widow that is good. It's even if you're on the fence to see the movie, I've heard that after that credit scene
is worth seeing the whole movie, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard David Harbour is really good in the movie too, who I enjoy from Stranger
I'm probably going to go
Things,
see it. I want to go see it in the theater. So it may be one of mine for me. But I'm holding out hope. I mean, you're right. And I don't know if it's an us thing. We went from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we got, WandaVision came out, and we're just getting so much. We're getting so much that now we're now becoming critical again, and we're no longer enjoying it the way we were when we had nothing? Or is it a diminishing returns, like you said?
Yeah.
I mean, even the ratings, I think, were the highest for the first episode in Loki of all the shows.
Yeah.
And they have plummeted.
Yeah, even just the cultural, when WandaVision was doing her thing and the different sitcoms, and then the Agatha all along reveal, it was on iTunes, that song, people were downloading the song off iTunes, and it just hit the pop culture zeitgeist in that moment. It was oh, did you see WandaVision? It was very, it hit hard. And then even Falcon and Winter Soldier had that to a lesser degree, but people were still interested, and their Baron Zemo had kind of the meme stuff going on for a bit. This show has not, people were oh, a Loki alligator, okay, that's funny, I guess. It just hasn't had the same amount of draw.
There's been no talk. There's been no talk about it. It's come on and it's gone away.
Yeah.
So this one is kind of fizzed carbonation ran out real fast on it. So
Yeah,
But,
just like my Ale8 here.
yeah. But no matter. Who are we? What do we do?
We're Dadnarok. We do an audio podcast.
We do this.
Yeah, we do this too. You can find our audio podcast, the Dadnarok Podcast, on every podcasting platform. You can catch us here doing the Loki after show every Wednesday night. We'll be back next week to discuss the final episode of Loki, and I'm sure we'll be discussing how Loki is going to basically, however that ends, kind of discuss the upcoming Marvel things as well, between Shang-Chi and the Eternals and all the good stuff coming our way. And then we are eventually, we kind of mentioned it earlier, we are going to do the Ted Lasso season 2 after show coming up later this month.
I'm so pumped. I'm ready for that one. I want a good comedy. You can give it to me.
Yeah, and we'll be back on Fridays, thankfully. I'm pretty sure that premieres every Friday. So
that's a Friday night show. Yeah, so we'll be moving from Wednesday back to Friday until we're back on Disney Plus.
But that's about it. Check out our YouTube page. If you haven't liked and subscribed already, please go ahead and do that. And that's it.
Yeah, guys, it goes a long way. The comment, I respond back to every comment. Like, subscribe, do the work. Everyone, even the bad ones. Okay, guys. Well, I think it's a good place for us to go ahead and say, keep it cheesy.
See ya.